Like, you didn't realize how much time you had in college. Oh, you didn't realize how easy high school was. Like, it's like a springboard thing, man. And I've noticed, and this is kind of what the main topic is about, guys, that have you ever noticed that people are just constantly trying, not everyone, people in general are trying to one up each other about who's having a rougher time or what period of their life was rougher?
Oh, absolutely. And talking about how each level, people always say it's going to be more difficult. I remember in 5th grade, my teacher said, you know, like sometimes I see wandering eyes in this class. In 6th grade, if you're taking a test and teacher sees you have wandering eyes, they will grab your paper, crumble it up in front of you, and throw it in the garbage. I said, 6th grade's going to be rough.
Yeah.
That never happened. Never.
I believe that all happened. What she said, I believe what you said in response, that story has got to be told across the country and with differing things. I remember specifically how much they harped on cursive needing to be used.
Right.
And it's like, you don't understand how hard it's going to be. You're going to have to write cursive with everything. And I'm like in high school going, oh, wait a second. Remember when they told me I needed these guys? And it's just like it's this constant goalpost shift of let's try to make people understand that this struggle I'm explaining is rougher than they have it, or my struggle is rougher than they have it. And at first, when we were chatting about this beforehand, I was like, is this a social media thing? Is this like people on a day-to-day basis when they complain like, oh my God, I have so many tests this week. Oh my God, I had to work out and then I did this and then I did that. It's like, I wonder if it's because social media exists and like people constantly see these perfect lives people live, but then you kind of countered back against that.
Yeah, I think this is a general philosophy that I hold against social media, is that a lot of people will say that problems that we have now are created by social media. I think that's a little arrogant of our generation to say that. I think that social media in a lot of sense augments the issues that we have, or augments our reality to, you know, show that like everybody can go get on their phone and tell 100 people how hard they're struggling during finals, and it becomes an echo chamber of sorts. But that is something that has always existed, even before social media. I don't think social media distorts or creates a new reality. And the reason I say that, and I won't mention the specific class, but I remember so well my junior year of high school, first period, it was, I forget what time class started, but like 7:55. Everyone's got to get to school at like 7:20, 7:30 to get let into the building. And I remember all these people in my class. This was one of the first AP classes I was in. Mm-hmm. And all of these, when I think about glorifying your struggle, I think about this class, because these kids would stay up until 1 a.m. They don't have extracurriculars. So they went straight home, sat on their phone for like hours. And then they started doing their essay for this class at like 10 p.m., went to bed at 1.
Yeah.
And naturally they had to post a Snap story at 12:55, letting everyone know they're up until 1. And in the morning, they're like, oh my gosh, I was up so late last night working on this paper. Like, I am just in it. Like, I am struggling. And it's like, what are you doing?
I am so wiped. Like, I was so tired by it last night.
And it becomes an echo chamber where everybody's trying to, you know, measure how tired they are, or like who worked the hardest last night. It's like, I went to practice. I had practice till 6. I worked till 8. And then I got this essay done and I was in bed by 10.
It's like, yeah, you just must have really either had more than you had, but these people that you're referencing are not in extracurriculars, so that means okay, maybe they worked, I don't know, maybe, but probably not. Yeah, that's a lot of people I know too. I think it's interesting that you bring up even the high school stuff, because you know, I remember a lot in high school. I remember a lot of older English professors I had expressing the ineptitude that my generation had and how much harder they had in their generation. So that's where, when you countered the whole, like, it augments it, I'm like, yeah, that's true. It does augment the problems that we have, right?
Yeah, I think glorifying struggle has been around as long as work has been around.
I find that interesting. What in the human condition causes everyone to try to one up, like, hey, in the 20s, really bad. Honestly, probably worse than we got it. Hopefully, if you're in the United States, if you don't think that they had it worse in the Great Depression than you do now, I'm sorry, but you know, like, I wonder what it is that outside of real situations where someone was in the depression or they, lost their home and were living out of a car, like, why is it on a day-to-day basis people feel the need to reference previous times of struggle, reference current times? Like someone gets hurt from running. I don't know, you've maybe noticed it too. Like the response isn't always, how are you doing? Or if it is, how are you doing? Then it's followed up with, yeah, I remember I had this injury once. And it's like, why?
They're always trying to one-up you.
It's like, why are we going there?
I think you make two interesting points with generational suffering or struggle. I think it's interesting how I have this belief that a lot of people, even though our standards of living from the Great Depression till now have greatly increased in the United States, I guarantee you that the perceived happiness or well-being of people has probably stagnated, because it's not that.
Yeah.
When we look, I don't know, pleasure and all that is very relative to who you're around, and no one is ever referencing the 1920s as a reference point. It's always where you stand within the current society.
Facts.
So if you continue to live middle class or lower middle class, you're going to continue having that same standard of pleasure, well-being, if that's how you're going to measure your well-being, is by the physical commodities and things that you have. So it's interesting that our struggle continues to stay the same for people, regardless of, having a million textbooks in our pocket, whereas you used to have to go to the library and struggle academically. I'm trying to think about the second point that I was going to make. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I think something interesting to counter off that, or just go further with that, is you said people only do it referencing what the current generation has. There's another layer to this. In that country, think about it. Like, we were talking about this the other week. Like, we were both born into the top, like, few percentage points of luck, Like, we were born into, like, decent, like, income families in the United States. Like, what? And then our reference point is other people who are at the same sort of, or in the same country, maybe even in the same region.
Right.
Whereas, like, a middle-class family in, like, India's got it completely worse than we do.
Right. And you should never discredit someone's struggle, regardless of what it is, because emotions are valid. But it's just so interesting when you break it down in either a cosmopolitan sense or a, across history sense. We are in a very, like, high minority of people who have way smaller problems than famine, plague, extreme poverty, all of these things. So it's just interesting how it almost seems that we can never reach any kind of utopia, because no matter how good technology is getting, we're always going to find that the next person seems to be having something a little bit better than I do.
I wonder if it's in the human condition to compare rather than be stoic.
Well, I think it's in the, me, I love Nietzsche. This might as well be just productivity meets Nietzsche. I took a Nietzsche seminar class, and now it's like the only philosopher I'm versed in. I think Nietzsche would say that it's not that it's in our human nature to compare, but it's in our human nature to suffer. And that's the only truth about the universe is that there is suffering. And I think that another interesting point that he makes about religion, which you could definitely parallel to academics or any kind of institute that we seem to put on some kind of pedestal now, is that it's almost virtuous to be one who struggles for that cause. I mean, you look at who is the ideal, virtuous person going to heaven. It's not the person who's out in the streets celebrating Jesus, but the one who is the leopard sitting in the cave who is just praying to himself, right? The one who's struggling because in the next life, they will receive salvation.
Yeah, and like Jesus Christ suffered and died for our sins to be forgiven, and that is how we will get into heaven. We as in people who also believe in Jesus and Christianity. So it's interesting in that sense that you bring that up, because then I'm like, all right, I'm a Christian, right? I believe in God. I believe in Christ. I wonder if since whether people know it or not, we live in a society that is and has always been mainly run by Christians, right? And especially in the United States. I wonder whether there's this bit of like small, I don't know how to word it, because I'm not sure whether it's like from human condition, from religion, whatever it is. But I just know that there's got to be some sort of push for people have heard like it's great that Jesus suffered for us, right? They've heard I mean, it is glorifying. Like the church glorifies the fact that Christ died for us because that's the whole premise of the religion.
Right.
Right. And do you see what I'm like babbling on about?
I hear you. And I think the point that I want to clarify on the religion part would be that it almost seems, I don't want to say it, that Christianity is contradicting itself, but the most celebrated symbol is the cross of which Jesus died on. That's a glorified struggle. Yes. But in the same sense, I don't know what the direct Bible passage is, but for my semi-understanding of a Christian upbringing is that it is those who struggle in the dark, essentially, away from society, who are the ones that are going to receive salvation, not those who praise in the streets or, suffer in the streets. So it seems that our glorified struggle seems to be either a misinterpretation or some kind of deviation from what Jesus wanted us to do. It was more of do as I say, not as I do with this guy, it seemed like.
That's like my least favorite saying. But no, it's my favorite saying, but it's my least favorite because like...
It's only to cut someone down.
Yeah, it's more of a like experiencing the European upbringing. That's like it's like a common like Southern European, like do as I say, not as I do thing. So not directly with my parents, but I've witnessed it in regards to other family members. So it's definitely, I feel like the do as I say, not as I do thing is at very well may be a factor here.
Yeah, well, it's just a matter of, I don't know, it seems that we didn't listen correctly when he said that you should be struggling and, keeping that to yourself, because we've done quite the opposite.
Like, I should be struggling. Oh, guys, I'm struggling.
Right, you're making yourself like a Jesus-like figure when you go out and tell everyone that you're struggling so hard on your final. And
the martyr.
Yeah, exactly. And it's supposed to bring you, I mean, honestly, it does bring you some kind of clout in certain circles. I mean, people in my first period class in high school said it because, as I say, it created an echo chamber where everybody would say, oh my gosh, like, I was also up till 1 a.m. Like, go us.
Yeah. If you want to see this episode or any other episode of the Rise Productive podcast, make sure to go and check the show out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and anywhere else that you can find podcasts today.